A super media special. Today I will read maybe four subchapters from the my enormous Encyclopedia Comedia. And it's a super media special because, well, Superman has a special role in today's presentation. Let me share the screen. Here we have the subchapter. This is where we start. The censorship powers of the supervillains. It's part of the larger chapter 7, the co-media. Let us begin. At a trilateral commission meeting in June 1991, code for XX, at least the year is, non-Jewish crime syndicate director Rockefeller said, "We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for world domination if we had been subjected to the lights of publicity during those years." He means honest journalism. But thanks to you, the world is now prepared to march towards a world dictatorship. Well, actual quotation. Yes, but should we believe it? Although this quotation appears to reveal that the media is a tool of world domination, we are not naive. The media did not accidentally leak scandalous evidence that it is colluding with evil. The above quotation is actually misleading. Why? Because it implies that the media is a free entity that chose to collude with the World Control Club. The truth is that the media was created by them and has always been lying. Secondly, the idea that the world began marching towards a world dictatorship in 1951, 40 years before 1991, is highly misleading. Because a world dictatorship already existed since at least 1914, when it staged the first fake World War, or at least since the various Western European branches of the WCC colonized the world. Although many journalists, anchors, and other media employees are intentionally lying, I suspect most are lying from sleepy ignorance. Michael Deaver, a non-Jewish former top aide of President Reagan, said, "The media are lazy. We fed them stories and they ate it, no questions asked, every day." A bold assessment of the state of journalism was given a century before Deaver, when the celebrated New York Times journalist John Swinton said, "There is no such thing at this date in America as an independent press. You know it, and I know it. There is not one of you who dares to write your honest opinions, and if you did, you know beforehand that it would never appear in print. I am paid weekly for keeping my honest opinions out of the paper I am connected with. Others of you are paid similar salaries for similar things, and any of you who would be foolish enough to write honest opinions would be out on the streets looking for another job. The business of the journalist is to destroy the truth, to lie outright, to pervert, to vilify, to fawn at the feet of mammon, money, and to sell our country and our race for our daily bread. You know it, and I know it, and what folly is this toasting an independent press? We are the jumping jacks. They pull the strings and we dance. Our talents, our possibilities, and our lives are all the property of other men. We are intellectual prostitutes. Former US President Obama warned university graduates not to explore the alternative media, while he flashed, not on the same day, satanic hand signs. That's how they play the game. Feed empty conspiracy theories. Thus they mock us. Earlier, or maybe it was later, Obama passed legislation making domestic propaganda legal, thereby giving more motivation to seek alternative media. Of course, censorship mostly operates by simply ignoring, not publishing, and not broadcasting thoughtful content about the real villains, the real hexes, and the real dangers of living in a world ruled by supervillains. And it will never publish Hexagon's manifesto and blueprint for a better world. Comical journalism. The comic book world is a WCC creation that mirrors the geopolitical world of war and terrorism. Like real news reports, comic books mock us with their occult symbols, numbers, and coded references to the past and to plans for the future. In short, comic books are designed to, 1, make us ignorant with toxic fictions, feed us occult red herrings, and mock us with hints of the true past and planned future. In Superman comics, the mocking happens in part by giving us the boring and useless truth reporter, journalist Clark Kent. We already suffer boring and useless real journalists. Do we need imaginary ones too? News outlets are already stuffing us with violent images and fear of violence and both domestic and foreign villains. Do we need comic books to give us a parallel universe? Do children need comics coded with references to Illuminati and Masonic symbols and numbers? I hope not. There's this one Superman issue 666, and yes, they played with all the fictions associated with that number in the Bible. The beast, Satan, they make appearances. The mark of the beast also. Lovely stuff for children. Well, in Superman issue 387 equals 18 equals 666, the villainous Planeteer, whose real name is Alexander Mason, believes he's the reincarnation of Alexander the Great, who reputedly died at the age of 33, like Jesus, a Masonic occult number. Mason allied with Queen Bee. Bees are Masonic symbols for the slave class, and queen bees symbolize the ruling class. We do live in a class-based system, but don't expect real journalists to discuss this problem in any detail. Instead of discussing real problems, the comic creators want us to reflect on the initials of the names of their characters. At least they amuse themselves with these letter games. For example, Clark Kent's initials are the 3rd and 11th letters in the alphabet, which together produced the number 33. And Clark Kent could be spelled Clark Kent with a C, like cent, because C can be pronounced like a K. Then Clark Kent's initials would be CC, which is Masonic code for the number 33 again. Aren't they clever? Doubling is another occult practice related to words such as devil and its Spanish equivalent, diablo, double. Louis Lane's initials are LL, and Superman's archenemy is Lex Luthor. Therefore, because they share the same initials, Louis and Lex are implicitly the same person, which helps explain why Lois has a unisex name. And I should add that Lois Lane is Superman's girlfriend, lady friend. So for the same initials to belong to his girlfriend and his arch enemy, yes, it's implying that the two sides are one. The same initial game is played with comic book hero Spider-Man's real name, Peter Parker, whose initials are PP, and his supervillainous archenemy is Otto Octavius. Otto Octavius has 8 legs, tentacles, just as spiders have 8 legs, which means Octavius is like Spider-Man, which implies that they are secretly on the same team. The doubling of initials by the forces of good and evil is also evident in the real world. ISIS is the acronym for the Islamic State of Iran and Syria, and for the Israeli Secret Intelligence Services. Additionally, the acronyms WW1 with a Roman 1, so looks like WWI, and WWII, WWF, WWE, these refer to the real world wars and the fake wrestling world in which beefy men wager war against each other. On a superficial level, they are very different worlds. But beneath the surface, they are both fake worlds. World wars and world wrestling. Similarly, the Pentagon's pentagon-shaped building represents the good, but the very similar pentacle shape represents evil. And yet, beneath the veil of difference, they both represent evils from which I predict we will learn something good, to think and be wise. That's my long-term, medium-term optimism. Lastly, despite their outward differences, Washington, D.C. and DC Comics are primarily sources of entertainment, two arms of the same beast. What fake opposites and fake rivalries teach us is that many wars, conventional and economic, are not real conflicts. It means that the world cabal always plays both sides of the world chessboard, and it fakes conflicts that the media presents as real conflicts. In fact, this interpretation explains why Superman let each of his 200 so-called enemies live, even the mass murdering ones. Also, his 200 villains, this number is very close to the number of countries on Earth. That is not a coincidence. Ironically, Superman issue 5 addressed censorship. In that issue, Alex Abel, an evil politician, buys a newspaper, the Morning Pictorial, and forces it to print lies that will help him win an election. The publisher of the morning pictorial is Zachary Colum, whose name sounds slightly Jewish but means Zacharine column, which means artificially sweetened news columns. Clark Kent wrote an article exposing the fake news at the morning pictorial for the Daily Planet. His publisher, Bert Mason, insisted on publishing Kent's article. However, Alex Abel and Bert Mason are a secret team working to create imaginary controversies to distract the people of Metropolis from the real conflict and the real enemies of humanity. Peter Parker, Spider-Man's alter ego, also worked in the news business. As a photographer, he was quite a web spinner or spinner of facts. His photos were published by New York tabloid, the Daily Bugle or Bungle, a low-intelligence rag with J. Jonah Jameson as its editor. PP specialized in photographing the violent duels between his alter ego Spider-Man and the latest supervillain. His ethics were questionable, as he sometimes faked photos of battles he forgot to document live. This seems harmless enough because it happens in the comic book world, but it is based on the real-world media's method of operation. Faking battles. Like Peter Parker, the media and associated agencies fake battle scenes that the media reports and documents as real. The variety and frequency of battles and villains found in the real world is also mirrored in the comical book world. On the geopolitical stage, we have a host of supervillains who usually lose to the West, but often return stronger than ever to fight in another fake war or cause another fake catastrophe. Examples of these supervillains include Germany in World War I and World War II, Russia somewhat in World War II, the Cold War, maybe we should include the Russian Revolution, Ukrainian War, and there's China. It starred in the Korean War. Even the Black Death, it gets blamed for that. COVID-19, yes, was blamed for that. The ongoing trade and tech wars, the annexing of Tibet, and the perennial threat to Taiwan. And let's not forget North Korea, perpetual nuclear threat. Iraq, 2 wars with 2 Bushes. Iran, perpetual enemy of Israel and perpetual nuclear threat. Israel, perpetually at war with the Palestinians and others. And still other villainous nations. Similarly, Spider-Man battles a host of supervillains, usually one at a time, and Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, another octopus. Oh, must be Octo. And Venom are repeating guest villains, just like Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea in the current so-called real world. Likewise, Superman, better known as Subman, regularly fights Lex Luthor, Brainiac, and General Zod. And real-world war fakery sometimes involves alliances, as happened during the 2 world wars, and whenever NATO is involved. Likewise, the comic book world has the Fantastic Four alliance, and the Justice Team of America, and more. Because comic books and the news media focus our attention on fake villains, The world's real villains run rampant. Who are the real villains? They are the WCC and its various allied industries. I've given them fictional, well, interesting, fun titles. Parasitic Corp, Governor T. Axe, Bloody Bankster, Grim Farmer, Big Pharma, Technophilia, Mad Media Professor, Mindable, and Mobus Ignoramus. In conclusion, we could learn a lot about the real sadistic psychopaths ruling this world by reading more superhero comic books. However, even then, comic books would not teach us how to become wiser and how to create a better world. But that's precisely the mind-corrupting cabal's primary goal. The mind-effing drug war exposed. Incredibly, investigative journalists at corporate news outlet DC Marvel studied thousands of comic books and concluded that the media is a big mind-effing machine. One comic book revealed that an Illuminati teacher known as Mind's Eye cast a hex on her Smallville High students. How? She used her magic wand, Failure, to keep students frozen with fear of failure. Then she channeled their sexual energies into herself and used them to fight Nature Boy, aka Chuck Bullocks. I'm taking some liberties with the comic book world. You haven't heard of Nature Boy, aka Chuck Bullocks, because, well, he's still unpublished in my only book of fiction. What's it called? The Holy Comedy. Could be a few months before that's ready. Last week, investigative reporters at Marvel Mind Control News published the following list of mind-effers guilty of casting evil spells on humanity. And these are characters found in the comic book world. All these characters are mind controllers. Which is curious, isn't it? Why would you have mind controllers in a genre intended for pubescent children? What do they know of the mind control world? Anyhow, I will read through this list. It's mostly faithful to the comic book world. I may have taken some liberties with a few. Number 1, Kilgrave, a Jesuit and highly skilled mind manipulator. 2, Poison Ivy, an eco-terrorist who uses mind-bending pheromones to save the planet. She wants to eradicate humanity. A clear example of anti-nature propaganda. Jean Grey, skilled author who manipulates minds textapathetically. Emma Frost, a honeypot who paralyzes men, forms a psychic bond with them, reads and alters their minds, and controls their actions. Paralyzes men, weak men. Rachel Summers, big pharma operative, erases memories and turns patients into zombies by changing their neural activity. Scarlet Witch is a public school teacher who wears the Masonic initial M around her face and spends 3 hours per day styling her hair into serpentine curls like Medusa. There she is. That letter M. For Masons, I think Medusa really, with that curly hair. She will turn men into stone. Amal Farouk, a news anchor who feeds on the negativity of people he influences. So much truth in that, isn't there? Darkseid, a prototype of weaponized artificial intelligence. He controls and reads millions of minds simultaneously, learns their deepest fears, and tortures people with their fears. So he can make anyone do anything he wants. It's reminiscent of Brian, Agent Brian in 1984. He was made aware that Winston Smith was terrified of rats. So later in the novel, Brian organizes the torture of Winston Smith with a rat. And lastly, Charles Xavier, aka Professor X, head of the X-Men, or shall we say non-men, is the most awesome intelligence guru on Earth. With his power over the internet, he controls what people know and makes people believe fiction is fact. Each of the female mind effers dresses like a sex kitten so that she can manipulate the minds of boys and men, while the male MFers look like professors because everyone trusts and respects professors. And that means they trust them with their minds, with the contents that are being put in their minds, as all students do in universities. It's a big mind stuffing institution. More investigative readings are needed to determine who controls and directs the mind effers, but we already suspect Jesuits, the so-called intelligence arm of the Catholic Church. They were founded by the imaginary Ignatius of Loyola and Sir Francis Xavier. That name again? Yes, the Savior, Xavier. Uncoincidentally, the name Xavier is already in our list of mind effers as Professor X, or Charles Xavier. So the corruptors of our culture, they love to give us red herrings to chew on. Oh, look, comic book hero Professor Xavier is related to Jesuit founder Charles Xavier. What could that mean? Not much, except that they are writing our comic books and our history. Uncoincidentally, Jesuit evangelists are presently manipulating minds in 112 nations, and no one suspects anything because Jesuits promote a humanistic, non-religious, pseudo-scientific culture. Lovely stuff. They work in education, research, and cultural pursuits. How philanthropic. During the early 21st century, big pharma hotshot Tony Fauci, the fake doctor and genuine Jesuit, helped cast the spell that convinced the world that an evil supervirus was afoot and able to decimate the human species. And he strongly promoted the superhero and superweapon, the COVID-19 vaccines. My investigative reporting uncovered the facts that comics, novels, and movies are also used to glorify and normalize the operations of America's foremost intelligence, really anti-intelligence arm, the CIA. Its presence in Marvel Comics includes 6 characters admittedly serving the CIA and an undisclosed number of CIA secret agents. Their stories involve numerous adventures that whitewash actual CIA operations. In fact, the CIA's Office of Public Affairs openly admits to being involved in entertainment media. The following is an entertaining excerpt from the CIA's Office of Public Affairs homepage. The CIA is often featured in books, motion pictures, documentaries, and other creative ventures. Actors, directors, authors, and others work with OPA to better understand the CIA's intelligence mission. By maintaining these relationships, OPA strives to provide an accurate portrayal of the people of the CIA, their skills, and their commitment to secrecy. To achieve this goal, OPA's entertainment industry liaison works with creatives, artists, to make their scripts, stories, and other products as authentic as possible. No contradiction there. It's a comical announcement. America's premier intelligence agency, the CIA, or Seeing IA, whose method of operation is secrecy, secrecy, and more secrecy, claims that it wants an accurate portrayal of the people of the CIA, and they want authentic scripts and stories. This would be hilarious if the CIA's power over the media didn't guarantee that nothing authentic will come from the media. For example, the 1773 equals 18 Boston Tea Party is a lie and a mockery. I know this predates the CIA, but the WCC has always been secretive. People don't risk arrests over tea prices or taxes. Yeah, the story is ridiculous. Throwing boxes of tea into the sea would only increase prices by reducing supplies. The truth, according to one rogue professor, is that the revolt occurred because British merchants were shipping opium into America, possibly in the form of laudanum. If that is true, throwing the opium, not tea, into the sea makes good sense. I don't know which professor said that anymore. During years of research, sometimes good references are lost. But yes, that's very plausible to me. Certainly the Boston Tea Party story is just a bit implausible. Now, reporters and government officials assure us that we are fighting the world's drug addiction pandemic. But this assurance is a comic book joke. If a drug war exists, why is our addiction rate constantly growing? And why did opium production increase enormously in Afghanistan as soon as its fundamentalist Islamic government was replaced by the drug-fighting US, replaced by pro-American, pro-US puppets, and the US military at that time began helping opium farmers? The excuse for that was, those poor opium farmers have no other source of income. We don't want to plunge the whole country into chaos by destroying their crops. No, sirree. I'll expand on that. Comically, the cocaine importing agency, CIA, has not destroyed the cocaine market, nor the opium market, nor the sugar market. Sugar is more addictive to mice than cocaine, and, well, maybe also for humans. They have not destroyed the toxic food and beverages market. Not going to touch that, are they? Not the toxic pharmaceutical market, Nothing. In fact, all the WCC's actors, authors, painters, and superheroes are busy promoting toxic food and medicine consumption, busy normalizing the parasitic financial system, glorifying the CIA and violence, corrupting our understanding of love and our sense of humor, and committing many, many more evils. I am reminded of Jason Christoff, who is frequently pointing out that movies are pushing coffee consumption constantly. And, well, there is some good evidence that coffee is also toxic. Yes, coffee consumption, more even than alcohol consumption, is promoted by the movie industry. Could add a few notes there. Last subchapter for this good day. Western media charged with casting spells. Den Haag, I believe it's a city in Holland that hosts the World Criminal Court as well as the, what is it called? A very similar court. Anyway, it'll come in a moment. Today, Western news outlets, schools, and movie studios were charged in the International Court of Justice. Oh, there we have it. With the double crime of casting spells by reporting fake tragedies while ignoring real tragedies, and of promoting stupid behaviors that lead to misery and death. Evidence for the first charge included photographs of the My Lai massacre. What? That's hate speech. The My Lai is not a lie. It really happened, argued the irate defense led by Miss Mad Medea. This was rebutted as follows. Your Honor, with all due respect, photographs do not constitute direct sensory evidence because scenes can be arranged before they are photographed, and photographic manipulation is as old as the first cameras. In the defense's award-winning My Lai photograph, known as the Terror of War, 1973, nice number, 5 children flee the village of Trang Bang, which was allegedly overheating from climate change. Excuse me, it was allegedly bombed with napalm, creating an enormous bang. Your Honors, my dear jury, after careful analysis, the Terror of War photograph supports the fake event conspiracy theory. As a thinking people's jury, you are surely asking, why are 5 children, one naked, fleeing a village without the company of their parents or other village adults on an empty road? Why are 2 children screaming while one seems unconcerned? This one, the boy, seems quite unbothered. The girl here is looking back at something. Maybe she forgot her shoes. A lot more than that. Very inconsistent behaviors here. Why are 3, no, actually 4, South Vietnamese soldiers walking casually behind the children, not near enough to hold their hands, not carrying the youngest children, not doing anything to soothe the traumatized children? Nothing. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Just walking casually, while presumably this girl in probably this boy, are at least jogging. Finally, these soldiers exhibit no urgency while a recently bombed village burns behind them. Why no urgency? Perhaps they read too many Superman comics or believe God will save the innocent. Yeah, well, it could be a dust storm too, but we're told that it's Trong Bang, burning. Now, the jury and judge were thought-struck by this line of questioning. The lead prosecutor continued. The name of the naked female child, Phan Thi Kim Phuc, is also highly suspect. Yes, the sick people, they love to make really stupid jokes with Vietnamese names. It's been done in other contexts. From Vietnamese, her name translates into feces, poetry, needle, blessings. Yes, they can't stop dreaming about their needles, those adrenochrome addicts. It's a highly unlikely name for any child to receive from its parents. Not unlikely, it's impossible. Secondly, I suspect degenerates chose to tag that naked girl with the name Phan Thi Phuc because it sounds like fancy fuck in English. The children are supposed to be fleeing incendiary bombs. And Phan Thi Kim Phuc is presumably naked because she removed burning clothes. However, if her clothes caught fire, why are the other children's clothes intact, and why do neither her skin nor hair show evidence of burning? Suddenly, one of the jury members stood up and shouted, "Was the photographer insane? How could he calmly document this heart-wrenching scene? And why do the children seem oblivious of the fact that he was standing directly before them?" The defense was furious, but everyone else scratched their heads while the judge took a photo of the confused juryman. The chief prosecutor continued. Another photograph allegedly documents the My Lai massacre. It shows a girl who seems to have severe burns. There's that photo. Not the best quality. Maybe not the best fakery. The pink spots on her skin are supposed to be the parts where her dark brown skin was burned off. But those pink spots seem to be band-aids. They seem to be attached to her. Secondly, the flesh-colored patch on her upper left arm appears to be another bandage. This photograph is not evidence that she is a victim of a US napalm attack. She's not even in a hospital. And speaking of hospitals, that's where the media should spend more time, because that's where people are dying en masse. That's the real war zone and place of real tragedy. Super mad media, super villain mad media shrieked. Real tragedies are too boring. No one wants to read about the millions being killed by diseases, traffic accidents, and workplace accidents. Only wars and murders sell papers. The prosecutor, Mr. Clark Kent, asked, Are you sure people don't want to read reports and investigations proving that they are being killed by an evil super cabal that profits from selling them toxic food, toxic medicines, toxic water, and dangerous modes of transportation? Nah, too boring, answered Miss Madej with undue confidence. People want explosions, blood and screams. What if you explain that the evil super cabal is also working to cause a mass famine and has already bombed food processing plants in the US? Don't be silly. The target is important. Food processing plants are not interesting. And famines make skinny people. They're not sexy. So, well, we'll get there in a moment. What if the evil death worshippers use geoengineering and weather manipulation weapons to destroy crops, use legislation to destroy farming, and manipulate the prices and availability of fuel, seeds, fertilizer, and other supplies to destroy farming? Would that be interesting? Mere conspiracy theories. Mad Media replied and yawned. Theories? Mr. Clark Kent repeated in disbelief. The Chinese government and Arab geoengineers speak openly about their work to control the weather. And here in the West, comic books feature both villains and heroes who manipulate the weather. Mighty Thor causes storms, and this is a real villain, Robot Chicken Cobra Commander, G.I. Joe's sworn enemy, commanded the world to bow before Cobra and my weather dominator. Cobra, the poison snake. Serpent. Here's a satellite image of the Netherlands being absolutely chemtrailed in very very regular patterns. Like, that's very, what's the word? The grid. It's almost like, no, someone is weaving a cloth over their heads. So densely woven. Yeah, this is back from 2015 when I was much more involved in researching this aspect of how our world functions in secret. I'm still very interested in it. I just don't devote as much time to researching it. I see chemtrails happening here during the wet season, the ailing wet season, and it's happened again this year. During the dry season, not so much, if at all. Well, anyway, the media considers this paranoid imaginings. Next, you'll be telling me that chemtrails can prevent and produce rainfall. No, you don't say. That's very provable science. Anyway, Clark replies, and you'll be telling me that commercial airlines fly in grid patterns. Well, there's a simple explanation for that. Pilots are used to driving on city streets with grid patterns. What about the chemtrails sprayed by farmers on our crops? You should know the word crop refers to a whip in horse racing world. Are you calling me a horse? That or a whip eater? You should know farmers often fatten their herds before slaughtering them, and that you are extremely fat. Americans beware. Canadians beware. Mexicans beware. World. Yeah, much of the world beware. Well, why don't you produce a superhero who fights the supervillain obesity? Huh? How? Would he fight obesity with carving knives and flamethrowers before he eats my juicy meat? A little note. Robot Chicken Cobra Commander's weather dominator machine actually creates and disperses clouds, causes rain, generates lightning, enhances hurricanes, and so on. But don't tell anyone. Anime and manga comics also have villains who control the weather, often causing deadly freezing instead of global cooking. One prosecutor even showed evidence that in Mexico, chemtrailing mostly occurs during its ailing rainy seasons, suggesting that the WCC is actively working to decrease rainfall, thereby decrease food production and cause conflicts over water. In China, which has badly built dams and a very good weather modification infrastructure, rivers are suddenly flooding and destroying crops. Yeah, in the world's leading food producer and exporter. I'd have to check the exporting part. In response, defense lawyers stated, "You are dreaming. Global cooking is the cause of all weather anomalies. You should be terrified of global cooking. It threatens the future of humanity. Didn't you see the movie about Superman fighting the global cooking monster?" There's all these. Yeah, all the media are on point. Climate change, global cooking will decimate humanity. No, lead us to extinction. Clark Kent confessed ignorance. The hungry jury ordered a basket of sun-fried chicken, and the judge ordered humanity to flee further north to escape the global cooking menace. In the sequel to the media conspiracy trial, Clark Kent presented evidence that the media is recklessly or deliberately ignoring evidence that earthquakes are being geoengineered by secret military agencies. His evidence, very strong evidence, consisted of comic books in which several supervillains cause earthquakes. Among them, Lex Luthor, Doc Seismic, Quake Master, and Avalanche. To this evidence, he read passages. To add to this evidence, he read passages from the Bible's book of Revelation, proving that evil powers will poison the earth and cause destructive weather phenomena and earthquakes. The judge was astounded. "Do you realize what this means?" he exploded. "This proves comic books and scripture are more reliable than the news media." On the contrary, Clark Kent countered, "to this day, no one is reporting and exposing the real problems and villains of the world." What are they? Who are they? They are the villains that cause billions of people to experience exhaustion, injury, and both physical and mental disease. Who are they? The judge demanded. The deadliest killers are the media, public education, traffic accidents, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, dementia, ignorance, droughts, and maybe the famine planned for the near future. The enraged judge slammed his gavel on his table and shouted, "When will Superman do his duty to save us from ourselves? When? When?" "He will not come. We are the supermen, if there are any at all, or we must become supermen, superwomen, without the silly costumes, needless to say." All right. I hope that was informative, stimulating, and fun, maybe too. You can reach me at prophetoffiction@proton.me. And you can see my work. 2 books are now available on, what's it called? Lulu.com's bookstore. The Encyclopedia Commedia will be ready, dare I say, next month. The Criminal Bible this month. Hopefully I'll get them ready or posted also and ready to sell on lulu.com. Take care, be well, my friends.